Well, what a wonderful thick and fog day to you, survivor I can't see because you're too far away. My name is Bricky, and welcome to the 4th installment of the Dead by Daylight case file, featuring probably the least screwed up character, the Huntress, or better known as the AXEY Girl. The lore of the Huntress is her name is Anna. She lived in the woods with her mother around the 1900 time period. Her mother and her hunted plenty of animals and basically lived off the wilderness in this cold, harsh area of Sikablat for a while. One day, they hunted a big elk, and the elk wasn't having that shit and impaled her mother, leaving her to bleed out and die while humming her favorite lullaby to Anna. So Anna, at the age of like 7 or something, hunted on her own. Rabbits, squirrels, then she wanted bigger. Deer, elk, then bigger. Bears, and soon her favorite, humans. She hunted humans for food and sport, and during World War I, she even hunted a massive German squad of troops and just destroyed the place. But she would never kill little girls. She kept them, because she always felt like they would die if she left them out in the woods. Instead, they still died, but of starvation or disease, and that made Anna pretty sad. Like I mentioned, she's basically 7 years old. Her mind hasn't developed like a normal person, so she's confused why trapping small children causes them to die after a while. Anyway, she collects trinkets and stuff off of these soldiers, all while wearing the bunny mask her mother made for her as a kid. And now she's in the realm of the entity, murdering Jake Park instead of actual soldiers. Poor Jake. No, actually not poor Jake. That's basically the Huntress. She's over 100 years old technically, but time doesn't exist in this entity realm. She's also not horribly disfigured or fucked up. She's just a child who likes to hunt people and gets really angry if someone drops a pallet on her. She throws tantrums all the time when things get thrown at her. She gets decisive strike. Okay, I'd throw a tantrum if I got decisive strike, but you get the point. So the Huntress's ability is her hunting hatchets. After enough begging, they added a ranged killer. Hooray. The Huntress starts the trial with 5 hatchets, and by using your alternate fire or click or whatever button it is, you slow yourself down to wind up your hatchet. The longer you hold it down, the farther you wind it up and the faster and straighter it will fly. You cannot attack while winding up, however using your regular attack action will cancel the wind up and return to regular speed. The hatchet when thrown will deal 1 state of damage to whoever you hit and can be reloaded at all lockers on the map when you run out. The ability is explained pretty simply, but its power is not to be underestimated. So how do you play the AXEY Girl? Well, she has a few notable differences than most killers. First off, she moves at a slower movement speed at 110%, unlike 115%. This is the same speed as the Hag, but much faster than the Nurse. This, of course, is to make up for her ability to chuck motherfucking hatchets at people. Another notable thing is her terror radius. Most killers' terror radius for heartbeat is about 32 meters. The Huntress has a special Russian lullaby she hums throughout the entire game that actually starts at 45 meters, but the heartbeat doesn't actually occur until 20 meters. This is of course to make up for her long range. When you hear the humming, you think, okay, gotta be careful, am I out in the open? But when the heartbeat races on you, then she's actually really close. Other than that, she's pretty normal. Standard swings, standard lunge range, 6.5 feet of pure Russian axe. So in order to play the Huntress correctly, it's all about reads. You need to outwit your opponent as the Huntress. She's one of the 3 highest learning curve and highest skill ceiling characters: the Nurse, the Huntress, and the Hillbilly. The Huntress relies on precision aim and figuring out what your opponent's planning to do. Are they going to go left? Are they going to dodge right? Are they going to crouch? What are they going to do? Luckily, windows and pallets are actually death sentences for survivors. This puts them in that standard like vaulting or dropping animation, leave them vulnerable for a split second, and you can throw that hatchet in their face. The unfortunate thing about the Huntress is depending on the terrain, you can sometimes be pallet looped. Being able to constantly duck behind certain obstacles and your reduced movement speed while charging can make it very annoying with things like Colwyn, jungle gyms, or certain pallet circles. Colwyn in general, due to the massive amount of corn, and Larry's Memorial Institute are a real pain in the axe. It should also be stated that the Huntress's hatchets are inconsistent as shit, but they're full of shit on both sides. Half the time you're like, that should have hit. The other half of the time you're like, that should not have hit. It's inconsistent for both. It just depends on which side you're on. Hell, sometimes you can hatchet somebody's top tip of their head, even if they're crouching behind terrain right next to you, just cause. Hitboxes are weird on terrain and branches. It's very inconsistent, but it's fucked up for both sides, so it kind of evens out. See, the Huntress takes a lot of skill to learn, but when you learn the Huntress and you can master the axe game, and most importantly, when you can look past the Russian thickness, you can be extremely strong. Alright, now let's talk axe accessories. Addon-wise, a lot of her add-ons are good. Like, most to all of her add-ons are really good. If I had to pick the best, however, I'd say reduced wind-up time, extra hatchets, and the mangled status effect. So the mana grass braid and the flower babushka for the wind-up, the leather loop and the infantry belt for the extra hatchets, and the rusty and begrimed head for mangled. If you don't know what mangled does, getting hit and having the mangled status effect makes it take much longer for you to heal up. Also, there's the iridescent head, probably the most overpowered red add-on in the game for killers. You get only one axe, but that axe one-shots survivors. You can put the infantry belt on to get 3 one-shotting axes as well. If you run that and don't get 4 DCs immediately, you're the second coming of Jesus. Please sign my yearbook. For teachable perks, we have the Tide Bleach removes all red stains, Greedy Survivor's Punishment, and Where the Fuck is the Bing sound. Beasts of Prey makes it so when Bloodlust activates, you no longer get the red stain. That's it. It's shit. Don't use it. Literally, if it's the only perk you have, go level up another killer and put those blood points in the Huntress. Do something else. Don't do it. It's bad. Territorial Imperative makes it so you can see the aura survivors that enter the basement when you're a certain distance away. Normally, it's pretty bad. However, it's good for 2 uses and 2 uses only. The first one is to punish certain survivors running down there to take an item from the chest because they're a little bit greedy. Or if you have someone hooked down there and you're walking away and you see someone running down to go unhook them. That's all it's really good for. Finally, Huntress's Lullaby is a hex perk that has an increased regression every time they miss a skill check, but also for every person you hook, you get a token. 1 through 4 makes the little bing sound before a skill check way shorter, and with 5 tokens, there is no sound. It's actually a really good perk. It's like Hex Ruin 0.5. It's not as good as Ruin, but it takes them a while to notice it, and it pairs with Unnerving Presence very well, especially for someone like the Doctor. Lullaby is a wonderful perk, don't get me wrong. I think it's super fun. It's just, it's a hex perk. We all know what happens when you run a hex perk. So for the Huntress's perk build, she's one of the only killers that can use Tinkerer. If you run Tinkerer and one of the wind-up add-ons, you can just tap the button and send a pretty strong hatchet. I'd recommend that. Past that, Whispers is great for tracking as well as barbecue and chili. Nurse's Calling is great too since the radius is outside your heartbeat radius, but inside your humming radius, so they get kind of a false sense of security. And of course, any of the really good killer perks work on her as well. Hex Ruin, Overcharge, Huntress Lullaby, they're all good. The thing about the Huntress is you don't need to worry about things like pallets. So Enduring, Brutal Strength, Fire Up aren't important on her. It gives you a lot more interesting choices when you play the Huntress. However, if you want a meme build, look no further than the Huntress, the Slug Murderer, Deerstalker, Knockout, Hex the Third Seal, and Ruin. Knock all 4 of them down to the dying state and then begin hooking. Make sure that they're all in the dying state first. Will you be flamed? Yes. Is this dick? Yes. Should you care? Absolutely not. This is a meme build. And before I go, here's the Huntress's Mori. 2 in the chest and 1 in the head. And with that, this has been our guide to the Huntress, Anna, or the AXEY Girl. She's one of the best killers in the game, but don't expect to be a god out of the gate. Play and play and play. And with enough time, you'll be terrifying. And do remember, this is your game. The killer makes the rules. No maid of honor code, no entitlement, giving the hatch, respecting the 4%, camping in general. If you want to do these things, you certainly may, but you do not have to. Do what you want to make you win. My name has been Bricky. Follow me on Twitter if you want to ask me some questions. Bye-bye.